Hello gamers, we are going to talk about Battletech, a game of armored combat. It is a board game about giant robot combat, from the 1980s, that was relaunched recently. These giant robots are called battlemechs, or just mechs. In this video, we are going to analyze formations, and their threat zones. In the animal kingdom, Predator looks for the slowest or weakest animal, or one that gets separated from the group. Speed is life, if you go slow, you die. Same happens when people walk alone through an alley. Predator attackers may follow the same criteria to evaluate tactical advantage. Isolated target in a given region. Easy pickings, unless the target shows extreme skills. If you are going to be engaged in a fist fight in a bar, being outnumbered is a problem. During World War II, the British Royal Air Force, or RAF, was outnumbered 4-1. But the British knew that not all the enemy planes would attack at once, so they planned and attacked enemies, so that in a given region, there was a fair confrontation, in terms of numbers. So the total number of forces becomes somehow irrelevant. What is relevant is the amount of mechs in a given region. If you split your mechs, and one mech is attacked, without enjoying friendly support or escort, that is a problem. Support is about formations, about the way to build them, and about the role of mechs inside the formation. For one mech, we have a threat zone. In this case, for simplicity, we are going to imagine a threat zone that decreases with distance, because it becomes harder to hit targets in the distance, and a front arc where most of the firepower is concentrated. The problem is that it is unlikely that in a serious game, you may have just one mech, and it is unlikely that your opponent may have one mech only too. For now we are going to ignore terrain, and we are going to assume that terrain is flat, because, as we saw in previous videos, we are going to need formations. So we will focus in analyzing formations. The threat zone of these formations is going to determine the attack capability of your mechs. If you have two mechs, you will have a leader and a wingman that serves as escort of the leader, and if the leader gets into trouble, the job of the wingman is to protect the leader. Normally it would involve to flank the attacker, so side or rear armor of the enemy is exposed. Let us show how formations look, and how to use them. Echelon left. When you need projection of force, in the front and left of the formation. Echelon right. In a similar fashion, this formation projects a threat zone to the front and right side. Line astern. It is very useful if you have to penetrate enemy territory, expecting an ambush, and you will face enemy fire from both sides. Notice that this is the best formation, to fit the geometry of the threat zone, for an ambush. Line abreast. If the enemy is right in front, and you want to concentrate fire, you may use this formation. Wedge formation. It is a very reputable formation, very useful to break enemy lines, but it is a dangerous formation, because it does not offer too much defensive capability. V formation allows a leader to lead from behind. It is useful when you want to surround an enemy, or keep the leader protected. Finger 4 allows to separate the formation in pairs, while keeping freedom of movement to all mechs in the formation. Star formation is mostly used by clans. To preserve the geometry of a star, mechs will have to spread, which reduces the effectiveness of their threat zone. Clans always found more honorable to win battles in disadvantage, despite of having very capable mechs. When you need to attack well-defended positions, you may need to find the side that offers the less intense threat zone. In this example, you may need to approach from the right. If targets are moving, threat zones may vary, so the tactical approach should be different. If you have two mechs against one, you may flank the enemy mech with the wingman, and force the enemy to decide which mech to face. The other mech will have a side exposed. If it is 2 against 2, the job of the wingman remains the same. To concentrate fire on the target of the leader, or defend the leader, if the leader gets into trouble. If you have jump units, there will be a temptation to split formation, especially if one mech is damaged. There are two problems with this approach. First, the escaping mech may be intercepted by another group of mechs. The escaping mech should be very fast, and have enough rear armor to withstand. If legs are damaged and that slows the mech, that will be a problem. Second, the remaining mech will suffer a severe tactical disadvantage when fighting alone. Splitting forces is something enemies used to like. Splitting only works if you need to flank an enemy. If you have heavy mechs with enough armor, you may approach and fight, because your armor allows it. But if you have a light and fast mech, unless it is doing a bodyguard job, flanking an enemy and going around the enemy, a light mech should move fast, and stay inside the enemy threat zone, during the smallest amount of time possible. We are going to borrow some tactics from fast warplanes, to apply them to light fast mechs. How did they attack? The F-4 Phantom in the War of Vietnam was a really fast plane, but it was also a winged brick, so it would lose in a turning battle against Soviet MiGs. What it needed was to come from high above, make a quick pass, attack and run and climb. It was more a hit and run attack than a melee. The P-38 Lightning also was fast, designed for high altitude. But it was too big and not very good at turning. So it had to use hit and run tactics too. The Messerschmitt Me 163 was a winged rocket. It was horribly fast, but it depleted fuel very fast. It approached the formation, and when entering firing range, it had 3 seconds to aim, fire, and avoid a collision. It made hit-and-run moves. During the Battle of Britain, pilots discovered that speed was more important than maneuverability. If you had to disengage, speed is what will save you. Else, you will be trapped in a dogfight to death. The best way to reduce the risk is to make a quick pass, fire and leave the threat zone. Straight lines for a quick pass, running, to gain distance, are better, no turning around. How about jump jets? If you have them and you use them, for defense it is great, but for attack, you will add heat points, so you may not fire as many weapons as you could. If the enemy has the jets, and the enemy is abandoning formation, you have a chance to isolate and surround the enemy mech, and hunt like an animal predator in the jungle. There are several ways to select a target. You may try to seek the one with higher battle value risk of critical hits on the reactor, or the one with higher battle value risk of ammo explosion, and if opponent panics and mismanages heat, that would be perfect. These indicators were already covered in a past video. The distance you use to fire weapons should allow maximum heat efficiency, which we already covered in a past video, and if you have many light mechs, you may like to use formations and hit and run quick passes. What about terrain? Old military wisdom says this: camp in high places. After crossing a river, get far from it. When an invading force crosses a river, do not advance. Let half army to get across and then attack. It is treacherous where there are trees. Avoid confined spaces and rough terrain. Stay away from such places. Make enemy have these spaces in the rear. When some forces advance and other retreat, it is all your. And how about your character as a player and mech commander? Recklessness leads to destruction. Cowardice leads to capture. Hasty temper provoked by insults. Delicacy of honor which is sensitive to shame. And how about getting used to select the same mechs all the time? If you had a realistic campaign, you may have to deploy many lancers in different places. It is unlikely that you could pick the same favorite mechs in all places. So for the sake of realism, you should become good at managing different types of mechs, because in a war, what you have is what you have. Some people say studying history is boring and useless. They do not understand that it provides the knowledge to play tabletop games like Battletech. If you liked this video, subscribe and activate the notification bell, like this video so YouTube recommends this video to other users, and share with other people. Let us make the Battletech community bigger.
Critical item. Hover train has reached processing unit. Mission successful.